Hey guys, welcome back. A few weeks ago I did a video on Starlink and specifically the pros and the cons that we have noticed since we started using Starlink. It got a lot of comments and I actually learned quite a bit myself. So today I'm just gonna go over a lot of the critiques of Starlink to give you kind of the SparkNotes version of the last video. Basically, I went through the pros, I went through the cons, and I told you all that we still found that it is very much worth it. We are very happy with it. We are totally gonna keep it and we're just really grateful we have it at all. That being said, not everyone shared that same opinion. I did go through and read some of the comments and I saved a few of them because I want to share them on this video. Just talking about a lot of the critiques of Starlink, even if they're ones that I haven't noticed myself. I am just gonna share some of the things that I've heard other people experience. That's one of the first things that I noticed is that experiences with Starlink vary widely. So just because you talk to somebody who loves it doesn't mean your experience is necessarily gonna be the same, and vice versa. If you talk to somebody who hates it, you might find that your experience with it is actually really, really good. So I saved a few of those comments. I kind of put them in little categories, which I'm gonna go over here, and it's a little windy today, but I'm gonna do my best to read these and get them back to you right now. Okay, this person says, I've had Starlink on my semi-rural property for over a year. Service is very good, more reliable than DSL. We do get short outages during the most intense storms. One additional con is the rate has gone up twice in the past year or so. So again, with no contract, these rates can change at any time. I work 100% remote, so the high speed and reliability of Starlink have been a blessing. So that brings up two really good points, and I'm noticing themes in some of these critiques that were in the comments. One thing I mentioned in my last video was that I really appreciated that there was no contract because it doesn't lock you into paying a certain price for, you know, an extended period of time, especially if you get tired of it or you just realize it's not working after the kind of trial period, that you're not locked into it like satellite companies would necessarily do. However, this person brought up a good point that if there is no contract, they can increase the price, and that they have done that in the past. I'll go over some other comments that went over more specific numbers, but that's a really good point. This person noted that they do get outages over short periods of time when the weather is really bad. So one thing I talked about in my last video was that we have never had kind of dips in outages, at least that I have noticed. I have noticed it be very consistent no matter what the weather is. However, I did notice some people in the comments saying that they have experienced kind of ups and downs. I did mention that when we were temporarily on the roam plan that we did experience kind of some ups and downs, but the residential hadn't given that to us. But people are definitely saying that they have experienced it on residential too, so definitely something to take into consideration. This person says your review evaluation is spot on, balanced, extremely fair. Observations are in line, but they say, to be fair, this really isn't on par with fiber internet speeds. I have fiber at my home and in town, and these speeds are available, are 300, 500, and 1,000. The cost for 300 fiber is less than half of what I pay for Starlink. So that's what this person is experiencing, just that it's not on par with fiber, which is something that I had said in our experience. Not only that, but they brought up a good point that fiber internet is gonna offer some more expensive plans, that the speeds are gonna go really way beyond what Starlink offers. So if you're someone who's looking at the upper plans of fiber cable, you're really needing that like super fast internet, that's probably something to consider. Same person also said the Starlink equipment is expensive, router leaves much to be desired, and the monthly cost is high. It's less expensive than other satellite offerings and provides greater speed, but if you have a terrestrial option available, Starlink isn't a preferred choice, which is actually what's seeming like a lot of people are saying. If you have fiber, that Starlink isn't really gonna be the way that you wanna go unless you're just kind of like into that scene. I think that makes sense for most people, and I do believe that most people who are using Starlink don't have another option other than satellite, which is why they're so excited about it. But yeah, if you have I like the way this person phrased it, a terrestrial option, that's probably still gonna be very much preferable. Same person also said the lack of customer service is a huge issue, but it is what it is, I guess. Take care and God bless. Thank you, you as well. Yeah, the customer service thing is an issue, but I'm gonna go into that more with some other comments. This person said, has Starlink over a year in central Illinois, residential speeds decreased from 100 megabytes on average to 20 to 50, while the price per monthly price has been increased from 99 to 120 per month. Thing drops out during heavy rain and cloud cover, is definitely not broadband. So kind of repeating what the person before had said, especially I think it's important to note that a lot of people in the comments are noticing difference over time. So even if they were really happy in the beginning, maybe they've noticed a change and they're not so happy anymore. So something to consider. I guess that would make me very happy that there's not a contract that I have to abide by, but at the same time, you're paying that upfront price for the hardware, so meh, you'll be the best judge for that in your case. Okay, this one's a doozy. When I tested it out, I found that the big issue is the router lacks a row of LAN ports like a standard router. I preferred hardwire connection over Wi-Fi always. If you want a wire connection, you have to buy a $35 LAN port adapter. My wireless device just had a real problem. After running speed tests, routinely getting 150 gigs down to the router, but 0 speed to my devices. They had no explanation for this, so I returned it before the trial period. I'm gonna be totally upfront with you guys. I'm not the one who installed this in our house. My husband did it, and I actually believe that he bought that $35 piece that this person is talking about. So, you know, one of the things I talked about in my last video was kind of how it's kind of a DIY thing. They don't send reps out to set it up for you. You kind of have to be familiar. And like I said in that last video, I'm not familiar with this kind of stuff. I'm not into it. So I'm really glad my husband did that for me. But like this person mentioned, some of the hardware is lacking stuff straight out of the box, and you might have to kind of finagle it to fit your specific situation and what you like. So even though it kind of ties in to the cons I mentioned before, this one was much more specific, and I figured it was worth saying. Okay, this person says, despite the fact that they were excited about Starlink, then came a couple negatives. They started limiting usage. In this day and age, I'm not going to consider internet from anybody who has usage limits. Then they go on to say this may have changed, but the fact of being put on a wait list without a credible estimate of how long really put me off. Totally understandable. Like I said in that video, we were also put off that we didn't know how long it was going to take us to eventually get it. And then they said that they were pretty weary about Starlink because of other Musk companies seeming to be cavalier when they fail to deliver on expectations. So yeah, you know, if you're into the politics side of this, or, you know, I guess that one's not political, but there were definitely some political comments. I don't get into politics on this channel, but as far as reputation with other companies go, I mean, if you know more about these other companies and you already have a perception, then I think that's a fair critique as well. You might be a little more apprehensive going in if your tastes of the other companies are not quite what you would like them to be. As far as the usage limits go, I was reading conflicting things in the comments. I wasn't personally aware of a usage limit, or at least a usage limit that is I guess within something I would be concerned about for our use, but maybe it's something you would be concerned about. I also read in the comments from other people that said there wasn't. So, you know, like the internet, you can never really get a straight answer on anything, but I figured I'd throw some of these critiques out there so you can come to your own conclusion. This person says, Starlink is available in my area and I'm in a similar situation as you. Only options are tower-based wireless internet. The speeds are decent, but the reliability is not. Okay, this person says, I live rural, love my Starlink and mesh routers. The worst part is the router Wi-Fi is shockingly bad. No Ethernet port on the router is a pain, and I've had to buy a few dongles. So yep, I talked about this one before. Another person who shares the view of the earlier comment that I read. This is interesting. As soon as Amazon comes out with their service, Starlink will have to start lowering the cost to compete. Competition is the best thing for the consumer. Wow, totally agree there. And I actually just learned about the whole Amazon thing recently. I had no clue when I made that last video. So it will be very interesting to see how that plays out. And I guess that's why I was pretty excited about Starlink in the first place, is that it offered competition to the satellite companies that have had pretty much a monopoly on the whole thing for a while. Okay, this one has some good numbers. Our experience so far, living in a small town in Eastern Washington, mostly slow and drops often. I'm so bummed to hear that for you. It's almost worse than Dish, which we had prior. And they raised the price $10 because we live in a rural area. Now, when we run a scan of connection here on the software, it shows that I'm getting 35% of the load. Oof. Even with it 20 inches away from the inside unit. Poor at any cost, and perhaps his rockets are not working right. I give the system a 3 in 1 to 5. Wow, if that's as bad as you're saying it is, I think that's probably generous of you to give it a 3 out of 1 to 5. But thank you for sharing your story. You know, another one where it's not necessarily safe to assume that your experience is gonna be the same as whoever's video you're watching online, or whatever friend or comment you're reading online. So that's why I'm just getting this info out there. I think it's just best to put as much data out there as we can. With no contract, they can raise the price at will. I looked into it a few months back and it was $100 a month. Now it's $120. You're absolutely right. That is a really good point of the downsides of no contract. This person says, considering it's destroying the night sky for everyone, but especially for amateur and professional astronomers, you should just use cable or fiber internet. I am not an amateur astronomer, so I didn't know that. Good to know, I guess. As far as using cable or fiber internet, wish I could. Actually, hey, if anybody out there wants to fund bringing the company out to our street, let me know. And then I appreciate someone responded to that. There is no cable or fiber if you're considering Starlink. Haha. We live in the country, dude. This isn't available for millions of people. Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of it is just people not really understanding that people live differently than they live, which is probably what a lot of human conflict can be traced back to when you think about it. Con number 8, no support number is true, but my dish had a problem, so I submitted a ticket and they arranged a dish swap in less than 24 hours. That's what I like to hear. So like I mentioned in the last video, one of the big critiques is that Starlink doesn't really have notable customer service, or they don't really have, you don't like talk to a representative like you do with traditional cable companies. So it was really, really good to read a few comments from that people left their experience with customer service, and you know, from most, or if not all, I honestly can't remember, but what I read was that people were having generally good experiences despite not talking to a customer service rep. But you can read the comments, and I'm sure you can go on Reddit and that kind of thing. Get whatever impression you need to get that way. I like everything about my Starlink except the monthly price. Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, isn't it? But you know, one thing I don't miss that I didn't mention in the last video was having to like go through the whole kind of roundabout dog and pony show where you call your cable company and you negotiate the price back down and like tell them that they shouldn't raise it in the first place, and they act like they're doing you a favor. I don't know. You know, it's all like, I don't know. Okay, this one's a doozy. You can make the most of this. I probably won't do much commentary on this because I honestly wasn't really able to understand kind of how this was written, but con, I lick a stamp to pay my cable bandwidth. Starlink needs a credit card. That's actually a good point. I mean, hey, if you don't have a credit card or you don't want to pay electronically, maybe Starlink just is not an option for you. Con, it takes 70 to 100 watts to run Starlink. Okay, Starlink only runs off AC power, not batteries and solar. I mean, I can think of a few workarounds for that, but I won't go into it here. Starlink makes a lot of radio noise. Con, Starlink has pathetic range Wi-Fi and has discontinued Ethernet. Con, the small dish terminal can overheat. While another one, while Starlink has robust bandwidth, there are no extra slow portable plans. Okay, that's actually a really good point. I didn't catch one that the first time around. So yeah, if you're somebody who literally just needs internet for checking, you know, email maybe, and you do nothing else, then maybe you do want one of those extra slow affordable plans. Although, however, if that's the case, I'm not sure why you'd be looking at Starlink instead of satellite. So, but yeah, it's a con to Starlink to note if you're trying to decide between Starlink and satellite and you don't need it for anything other than like checking email. Pro, Starlink runs off procession satellites where cellular internet might offer you one part-time cell tower. Make of it what you may. I just want to share it out there because there's quite a few points on that one and you can dissect it if you want to. This person just says Starlink is not very good in Colorado and southern Colorado is not serviced. So, okay, honestly, there were a few I didn't go over and I didn't read all the comments, so I don't know what else is there. So in case you haven't seen the other video, it might come as a shock after just all these Starlink critiques, but we do still really love our Starlink. We're going to continue to use it, but I will update you guys either through a pinned comment below or through a new video, and if that ever changes or there's significant new information. Otherwise, I just thought it was good to get as much info out there as possible, which includes some opinions and some experiences that I did not experience myself. So if you want to read all the comments, you can go to that other video, or if you have experience with Starlink yourself, or maybe you were thinking about using Starlink and you decided not to, or maybe you're just frustrated you're still on the wait list, please leave a comment if you have anything to share below, assuming you can do it in a civilized, grown-up way. I think it's really useful, even if we don't all agree on everything, when we can kind of talk about different experiences, and I think it helps other people who might be in similar situations make the best decision too. I hope this was a little bit helpful for somebody out there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.